Okay, good afternoon. So we're going to commence the meeting today. We are here for the Education, Environment, and Sustainability Committee meeting, Wednesday, April 4th. Can I have a roll call, please?
Calling the roll, Ms. Simon.
Here.
Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Shrine. Mr. Shrine is absent. Mr. Brady.
Here.
There is a quorum. Also like the record to reflect that Councilman Miller is in attendance.
Thank you. So do we have any public comment related to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
No, Madam Chair, no
Okay.
one is signed in.
We do have minutes from March 21st. That was the meeting in which we heard from College Now and Workforce Development. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes approved, read, and will be part of the record. We have two companion pieces to learn about today, and I would ask that the clerk read those together. One, they're two parts of the same consumer legislation that we've been looking at for a long time.
Ordinance number 2018-0002, enacting Title 13, Chapter 1301 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish the County Consumer Protection Code and amending Section 202.1687 of the County Code to clarify the duties and responsibilities of the Department of Consumer Affairs Division of Consumer Protection. And ordinance number 2018-0003, enacting Title 13, Chapter 1302 of the County Code to establish the County Weights and Measures Code.
Thank you very much, and I want to recognize that Council President Dan Brady is the father of this legislation and had the vision to start the consumer department at the county, and thank you. And now we're able to really start to look at how it's going to be effective. And with that being said, I would call up Cheryl Harris to talk about the legislation and the code. And just as a statement before you start, is that this is parallel to the state of Ohio's Consumer Sales Practice Act, and that we are really just want to distill that down into the county. And you can talk about why we need this and how it's going to be effective.
Hello, everybody. How's that? Better. Okay. So I just want to go over really quickly kind of where we were and where we are. And it's true that the founder of the Department of Consumer Affairs is right here, Dan Brady, and what we do, hang on a second. What we do is our department combined, just as a quick refresher, the existing Division of Weights and Measures and this newer Division of Consumer Protection. So we have weights and measures inspectors who oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm pushing all the wrong buttons here to get us where we want to go. So our weights and measures inspectors go on the road every day, and they are out there making sure that consumers get what they pay for by making sure that all the devices that sell products to consumers based on volume or weight are accurate. So they're checking the accuracy of scales at supermarkets. They're checking the accuracy of gas pumps. In 2017, just so you can get an idea of the scope of our work, Weights and Measures tested and sealed 11,801 devices at 1,596 stores. So we are very active. We're working all the time. Although Weights and Measures inspectors have the ability to order devices out of service until they're corrected, take misweighed packages off shelves and order those to be corrected before they're put back, they don't have the ability to make consumers whole. That's not something that we get under the Weights and Measures law of the state. Whoops. In addition to protecting consumers through this baseline work, we are also messaging both out to consumers and to companies whenever we see scams and other things that target them. So just as an example of this is our Skimmers Seals brochure, and you should have it in front of you. I think we've got copies of them, but skimmers are a problem because identity thieves install them on gas pumps, and they're hard for a consumer to see. When you go up to a pump that has one of these in the register, you wouldn't necessarily know. But when you put in your credit card, it steals the information off your credit card and allows an identity thief to actually replicate your card and create a new card and then use it somewhere else. So it's a lot of liability for gas stations themselves because they're the ones who allow those charges to go through. What we did is we got a training from the Secret Service, our inspectors, so that when we're out, we can look for these things. But we created this Skimmers and Seals brochure for gas stations across the county to let them know how to train their staffs what to look for, because they're going to be inside those pumps and they're going to be more likely to see the skimmers than ordinarily consumers would, or that we would want in our once-a-year checks of these places. So we are always trying to find ways to connect with companies and with the consumers in this county. Consumer protection, this newer division, we have 2 investigators, and we investigate complaints. These are complaints that are brought to us by our residents about maybe misleading ads or promises, unfair debt collection. We get complaints about car repairs, car purchases, home repair problems, surprise fees on mobile bills. We get a gamut. Just the complaints we get run the gamut, and consumers come to us for help. In addition to that, we issue alerts whenever we see a problem. And you guys created us. One of our missions was education of consumers about scams. So we're constantly issuing alerts. This little consumer alert, this red thing, this is one of the projects that we did with Dave's and with Giant Eagle, and we placed these alert things on gift card sales racks. And the reason is because now that the feds have kind of cracked down on money wiring services, really made them do more to make sure fraudsters were not using their money wiring services as payment. Scammers are kind of running en masse to gift cards as a method of payment. So they want to be paid with gift cards, and what they'll do is they'll tell someone to get a gift card, that it can be used to pay a fee or fine, and they read off the number, and as soon as the scammer gets that number, they can just take the value off the card. They can sell it online. They can use it for products. It's harder to trace, and so it's a good method of payment for them. We issue scam alerts to all sorts of folks, young people who are victims of job scams, older people who are victims of grandparent scams, companies and consumers who would be victims of utility shutoff scams, and clerk of court imposter scams, which we'll talk about in just a second. This map is a map of the consumers who filed complaints with us from within the county. So 182 county residents filed complaints against businesses. These dots represent the consumers. These are where they live. The companies may not be in Cuyahoga County at all. They could have ordered, for example, from an online company, and so that company could be somewhere else. We also accept complaints from people outside of the county against a business in Cuyahoga County, but those aren't represented on this map. These dots are all consumers who turn to us for help. Last year, we returned $9,100 to consumers, refunds, forgiven fees, other kinds of relief. We only count those dollars when they're really obvious. So it's a $500 debt collection item that gets forgiven. That's $500. We'll count that in the total. But we do other work where we don't really know the value. So we had one consumer who had a problem with a stove that 2 months after they bought it, the glass on the door cracked, and the manufacturer said it wasn't a warranty issue. We actually intervened in that. They provided a new oven door. We don't know the value, so that's not included in that value. It's kind of a loose count, and we just keep it so we kind of know where we're going. These, in addition to the consumers who come to us for complaints against businesses, and those are actual businesses that we can find, right? We get these scam complaints, and we got about 270 scam complaints last year from inside the county. And again, these blue dots are people within our county, residents of our county, who have encountered some kind of scam or scam attempt or actually lost dollars to scams. These are only the complaints that come to us. In addition, we know that some scam victims are going to partner agencies as well. So these are only the complaints that we field. Two of these scams I just want to let you know about because they're really scourges right now. One is a grandparent scam. And you might have heard of this one. It's where someone calls an older person They usually sound really hysterical. Grandma, help me. I was in a car accident. I was texting. I hit a car. I'm in jail. Don't tell mom and dad, but I really need some bail money so I can get out. And then they turn the phone over to a partner who pretends to be a court officer or a defense attorney, and they say, oh, hey, don't worry about little Jimmy. We'll get him out of here, but we really need you to pay this bail money. The quickest way to pay it is to go to a big box store, get a gift card, and then we'll call you back for the information. The government has an agreement with this gift card company, this store, so that we can get these payments paid to our office. So people, it's not unusual for victims of this scam to lose $3,000, $4,000 in this initial go-around. And if they pay it, the scammers will come back again and say, you know, that did take care of the bail, but the person in the other car wound up with some medical expenses, so we're going to need another payment to cover that. And they just keep coming back. We know of people who've lost as much as $12,000 to these scams before they find out that their family member is in fact safe. So we do a lot of messaging out about grandparent scams. County imposter scams. I will tell you about these because you might hear about these as you go about your business in the districts. We also have a rip-roaring county imposter scam going on. And there are different players in this. They call people and they say, this is so-and-so from they are using real names of our real actual sheriffs, deputies. And they say, this is Deputy so-and-so, I have a warrant for your arrest. We are on the way to get you now because you either missed a jury duty date or you missed a court date. We're on the way to arrest you. The only way you can avoid this arrest is to go get a gift card, remit this payment to the sheriff immediately, and then they get them to read the card number. It's the same. The payment method is the same. These are just two different ways. So we are actively working with the sheriff's department right now to investigate these scams, and we're kind of cross-referencing them. If they lose money, we send them over to the sheriff. If they just have a near scam experience, that's where someone really interacts with a scammer and they get a lot of information. They send them to us so that we can mine those for information that we can give the public to better defend themselves against this and to recognize these kinds of scams. So this is just another material that we hand out. This is not a great reproduction, but you have the actual card in front of you. And this is one of the products that we did through Scam Squad. Scam Squad is our senior financial fraud task force. We have state, local, and federal agencies that are members, as well as nonprofits that work with seniors. And so these are by the phone cards. So we can't actually interrupt a scam, and it's really hard for scam victims to recognize what's happening while they're in the moment. So these cards are meant to be left by the phone. And we are hoping that if they're on the phone with someone who they think is a grandchild, if they look down and there's a card in front of them that says, the caller claims to be a grandchild who needs bail money, they will say, wait a minute, I need to hang up the phone. It's okay. And then they'll call us and let us know about that experience. On the backside are some of our partner agencies in Scam Squad. That's not the total membership of Scam Squad, but it's agencies that provide one-on-one assistance to either seniors or to consumers. So I'm sharing these with you because we've kind of used all the tools that council originally gave us. We are messaging out, we're issuing alerts, we're doing education, we're working collaboratively across the county to kind of to try to protect the public from some of these scams. What we're here today for is because we really think that we could use another tool, and that's enforcement legislation. What this legislation does, as the councilwoman said, is it codifies the existing state weights and measures and Consumer Sales Practices Act. It makes those part of our county code. Violations of weights and measures law under these two pieces of legislation would become violations of our Consumer Protection Code. So we wouldn't change the way we deal with weights and measures interactions between inspectors and businesses necessarily. However, if we see a violation that has a potential to harm large numbers of consumers, we could pass that over to our Consumer Protection Division to see if that is bumping up against our statute. Businesses do not have to follow any new or different rules. if this code is adopted. They are already required to do everything that's in our ordinance already just to do business in the state of Ohio. So there's no, it just gives us the ability to do local enforcement. If we adopt these, DCA could reliably protect county residents from unfair and deceptive sales practices. And because we're a county agency, we're a lot more nimble and we work a lot quicker than some other bigger agencies. It's just the nature of the beast. We could conduct meaningful investigations of deceptive acts. And right now we do a lot of preliminary investigations, but there are reasons that we can't. If we want to get complaints about a business that have been filed with, even with the BBB, we can't get them because the BBB requires you to subpoena them to get those complaints. I mean, there are hurdles that we face in doing larger investigations because we don't have enforcement authority. We could take action against some of these smaller scammers who, fly under the radar for other agencies. All of the agencies that we partner with, and we do partner a lot with these agencies, but so the FTC, there's a certain dollar value that the scams just have to reach a certain dollar threshold for them to take interest, or it has to be an enforcement target area that they're actually looking at before they want to take those cases. And so they don't do one-on-one work with consumers on individual cases the way we do. So we're looking for things when we refer cases over, we're kind of working within their parameters. And the same is true of the AG, the State Attorney General. But sometimes we see something where we think we could nip that in the bud if we had enforcement authority. We could just, it's too small for those other agencies, but we know it's happening in this county, and we could, step in with a consent agreement or something, so we could just end that behavior. We could better protect scam victims from losses. And in the case of these gift cards that I was talking about, sometimes if we hear from a scam victim very quickly after they were scammed, we can call the store that issued the card, the gift card, and we can say, here are the card numbers, freeze the cards. We believe they were used in a scam. Some big box stores will do that just right off the bat, just because we are the Cuyahoga County Department of Consumer Affairs. There are other stores, they want a subpoena to do it. They want basically us to order them to do it. And by the time we would, I know, these are, every second matters, right? In these, because these guys are going to read through the cards, they're going to use the cards, and we're very concerned about being able to intervene right at the time that we can. If we can keep a scammer from getting a payday and we can save that consumer money, I mean, that's fabulous. We've been able to do it sometimes, but it's frustrating when we get to those stores who, just because of their own procedure, they want to have a subpoena. So. And then the other thing is we can just right wrongs. I mean, we can halt unfair practices, and when they're warranted, we could order restitution for consumers. And that is really, I think that's what consumers really kind of expect us to be doing anyway. I think that's kind of what they're hoping we are when they come to us. And so right now, businesses that are really great businesses, when we call them, they'll take a look at the consumer complaint, they may make an adjustment, they may, or they give us a reasonable explanation of how they got to where they got to, right? This is the ordinary path that we have with reputable businesses. But sometimes when we get to these companies who meaningfully, they are misadvertising what they have, they're trying to undercut the competition by having a low price where actually there are all sorts of hidden fees on top. Those companies, they hang up the phone. I mean, we've had companies that actually just did not respond to us, or they've said, what's your authority? We're not playing ball. So this gives us, I think this gives those companies maybe a little bit more incentive to talk with us in the first place. So, any questions that you have, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you so much. I think we could probably spend all day going over all these different scams. They're so pervasive and scary. Council President.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. And it's very real and more common than most people think. The gift card scam. It sounds kind of lame, but only a couple of years ago, I had a call from a local store that I do, frequent, and I had gotten a bill that had like a couple of $100 worth of, it was the gift card. There was for gift cards, and I called them, and it took quite a while to try to be able to convince them that without a doubt I had not purchased these gift cards. And I still don't exactly know how the information, and that's what I was most upset about, of course, was how did this information get into somebody's hands. But I wanted to ask you, there's the weights and measures law is old. I mean, what I mean by that is it's ripe. And I wondered, first of all, there's the traditional division of authority in this county that basically the city of Cleveland has the authority in weights and measure law, and then most of the rest of the county has its own. That's what we've been responsible for traditionally. Those are what the Department of Weights and Measures checks throughout the county. In terms of the kind of anti-scam legislation, and I presume the rest of this legislation, how does that allow us to be able to, if so, to service people who live in the city of Cleveland that we have not, as the Department of Weights and Measures did not serve?
Right. The Department of Weights and Measures, the jurisdictions are set by the state. So the city of Cleveland has its own jurisdiction, and you're right. We can't do any weights and measures work there. I believe that we do take consumer complaints there, and they also have their own Department of Consumer Affairs, but we both work complaints, handoff complaints in those departments. Because we're taking weights and measures violations as violations of consumer protection, I believe that we can do, once they become a consumer protection complaint, we can do them across the county. We won't be enforcing them as a weights and measures violation. We would be enforcing them as a violation of the Consumer Protection Code, something that's deceptive or something that's, like serially wrong or something. We would be able to use that. The Consumer Protection Ordinance covers the entire county, and that would be a different division where we'd go to make those folks whole.
Okay, that's good for now.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Miller?
I appreciate all the good work you're doing, and it's just distressing how much of this stuff is out there. And I'll just share that the one that I get on a fairly regular basis is they claim to be some kind of a relative, not real close, but a definite relative or friend, that someone that I've emailed with, and they say that they're on vacation in Italy, and their passport and all their money got stolen, and that they need me to wire them $1,500 so that they can get home, and that's
right.
That's the one that I've been seeing.
Yeah, that's a common one on Facebook for Facebook friends and for email. And I have to tell you, my husband travels a lot, so I got a call one morning from someone, a friend, who said, I don't know if you saw your husband's post, but he got mugged on the train on the way to the airport. And he wants you to call him about, the cards and stuff. And I said, I think that's a scam. And then I got on and looked at his Facebook post, and it was different. I mean, he really did get mugged, but I was like, that's just a scam. But we're so, in my line of work, we're so used to seeing the scams. Sometimes it's, wait a minute, okay, this is real. So yeah, they're pervasive. Some of these scams are pervasive.
One of my scams. I get the calls from the IRS that if I don't pay some tax due, I'll get arrested. Does that?
Yeah, and that's our number one. That is our number one complaint in the county. It's the number one complaint for the Attorney General and for the Federal Trade Commission as well. These imposter scams, the IRS has called them a scourge. And they're robocalls. They're mass calling folks and telling them. And they're really frightening calls. I mean, if you interact with them, they say, you didn't pay your taxes, there's a warrant, you need to call us right now. And when these people call, they're told, we are on the way, we're going to seize all your bank accounts, we're going to seize your home, we're going to throw you out, you need to pay this now. And people are so terrified of the IRS. They really do. They're just... They're frightened. They'll pay the fee first and ask questions later. Even if they think they don't know, they're like, I'm going to pay them, and then I'll call and get this all sorted out. It's a mistake. And that's how the scammers really profit on these. But that's our #1 call, imposter scams, those IRS imposters.
Councilman Jones, do you have a story to tell?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Or a question?
No, Dale told the exact same story I had. I get the internet emails and someone's lost in London or something and needs money, and so
you can forward those to us. We actually like to see them. I mean, we're happy to see what's going on out there, and it helps us to know that these things are still around and about, because we message out to the public, and we do our Scam Squad spots, with all of our Scam Squad partners. And that's once a week on WKYC Channel 3. So we're constantly trying to find new ways. Danelle, who's here? Danelle's our outreach specialist. She does talks all over the county and goes to events all over the county. And so it really, anytime you guys have a scam, just forward it to us. We're happy to, we log them, we share them with partners. If there's enough information, we do a preliminary investigation now. So we're happy to have those.
My question is, do you catch the scammers? Do you ever catch them? And if so, I know you don't have authority now, but what do you do if and when you identify someone?
Right now, and we'll still do this, by the way, we sometimes, when we do a preliminary investigation, we'll hand that off to a partner agency that's just better suited to take the case, right? One of our Scam Squad goals is we capture those complaints, and we make sure those complaints get referred to the agency best suited to investigate. That can be a lot of different agencies depending on what kind of scam it is, right? So for the IRS scams, if it's just a robocall and you don't really respond, that's a Federal Trade Commission complaint. They're after robocalls. But if you lose money to that becomes a TIGTA complaint, the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, because they investigate cases where people are impersonating the IRS agents, right? So we had a case, I think last year, Repair All PC. A guy from out of state called us and said that he was on his computer, he was looking at something, and as soon as he went to this site, he got a pop-up that locked up his computer and told him he had a virus and he needed to pay money to get access again, to get this virus off of his machine. Well, it's a scam. I mean, they generated it, and then they get the business. And what those kind of companies usually do is they say, oh, yes, let me have access to your computer. So then they've got access to your computer. That's bad. Never let anyone do that who calls you. And then they take you to places in your computer and show you, like, little symbols that have, like, exclamation marks. Those are just the ordinary stuff that happens in your computer when you're doing anything online. But they say, do you see that big exclamation mark? That means there's a virus. And you got a whole screen full, so you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get rid of these. They want a credit card, they charge you, and then what they usually do, if they do anything at all, if they don't put malware on your computer, they give you some kind of freeware, free virus stuff on your computer that you could have just gone out and got yourself. They charge you $500 for it. So this guy complained to our department, and our investigator actually went to the location, and we found it was a virtual office. They were forwarding mail to a place in Canada. So it's one of these octopus companies. They kind of have arms all over the place, like offices all over the country. And the reason they do that is because whenever someone comes to them, they're pointing their fingers in some other direction. And it's also hard for law enforcement. If they charge a little through all these little arms, sometimes it's harder for people to figure out it's one big entity that's getting the money. So in that case, we took our investigative work and we handed that case off to the Federal Trade Commission, and it actually became part of, they did a giant sweep of repair tech scams, and that case became part of that, and our investigator did an affidavit for them, and we became part of that investigation. So we work with partners now, and we'll still do that. We do a brisk business with the county sheriff's department when we think it's a criminal issue, and we do encounter those from time to time. We make referrals over to the sheriff, and the sheriff then investigates and hands those to the prosecutor. I think there's something going to the grand jury very soon. And so we do a lot of work with our partner agencies. And we'll still do that because, you know, we've got 2 investigators. We're tiny. We have a small budget. We're going to pick off those cases that we can't find a partner on that we think need to be addressed to protect our residents.
What is the phone number to call if a constituent needs to reach the yellow card?
You know what? It's on, okay, Scam Squad, that rings into our office, but if you flip it over on the back, the 7035 number, that's our direct line. And I am proud to say that if you call our office and there is a person available who is not on the phone, they will pick up that line. That phone gets answered all day long. And we're, they can fill out complaints with us by calling us. They can fill out a complaint with us online, consumeraffairs.cuyahogacounty.us. And then for people who aren't really comfortable doing an online complaint form, we mail them complaint forms so that they can fill those out and mail them back to us.
Any other questions, comments? So we appreciate this, and I would like to recommend that this go for 3 readings. Is there any reason why? It's been in the committee once, I think, already. Read once. This would be twice. So I can refer this to the next council meeting, I think. Madam Clerk, do you know if it would be a 3rd reading?
This would be 2nd reading. The previous legislation, it was like a couple years ago that was withdrawn. So this
was
brand
introduced.
New legislation.
So this is okay.
Yeah.
So that it's not an amendment.
Right.
Brand new. Okay.
That's right. It's new. Madam Chair, if the committee wants to send it on to the full council, that's fine. If there are unresolved, if there are questions that come up, we may or may not be in a position to pass the legislation at the council meeting. I think we probably should be able to, but I'm just not going to assume that there's not going to be some pushback somewhere and that somebody's not going to have some questions, and unless we can answer them very quickly, then I think we'll have to wait until we can. I'm certainly we've been waiting for quite a long time, and I know you've been waiting for quite a long time. There's just a lot of stuff going on around here. So I'd be glad to take it up at the council meeting, and then between now and then try to see if we're getting any what questions we get from other members, and if so we can clear those things up, and if we get any pushback from anybody outside the council, what those issues are. To the extent I've heard of any of that, it's mostly been a misunderstanding of the legislation and not really opposition to the substance of the legislation.
Do you want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So this will be moved out of committee and will be on the agenda at the next council meeting. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to have my name added, please.
Okay. Mine too.
Mine too.
Well,
So committee plus Miller. Thank you very much.
That'll help when we send the email out to our members that we have 5
Yeah.
members on.
So thank you. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I got the presentation. She was one of the features when I did the town hall meetings last year, and it really was helpful. It's a very good thing. So the more information we can get out into the community relative to the function that this department offers, the better. So I'm happy to continue to support. So I was a little delayed in my reaction, a little distracted, but certainly support your work and the good work that you've been doing and the participation in the meetings that I had in my community. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. We are happy to do town halls for any of you and do events in your district because we are trying to get the word out that we exist. Not a lot of people know who we are or what we do, and they're kind of surprised. But
We feel the same way sometimes. Break protocol.
you. Okay, yeah, and you'll be coming out to South Euclid. We'll have to
Great.
schedule that. Okay, so I don't have miscellaneous business. Do we have other public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay.
Could I just
Sure.
have the
Sure.
floor for a moment? I just wanted members to know that before this meeting I was at, and it was so ironic because we had what's called an anti-groundbreaking, but we would think of it as groundbreaking of the solar panel project out in Brooklyn, which of course went through this committee. But they had an event at 2 o'clock out there this afternoon, so I came directly from there to here. But there were, lots of people out. It's a very exciting project, and sometimes, these things take so long to happen that by the time you get to that day, we've put it in our rearview mirror and we're just going forward. But there are some really good things happening that we've been involved in, and we should just all be aware of that.
Councilman, thank you, Council President. I couldn't be there. I had a solid waste special meeting, and I knew about the groundbreaking. It's extremely exciting in a lot of different ways. But Councilman Miller?
Did we pass both items of legislation?
We read both and referred both. So is there any technicality we need to? Okay, because we read them both.
Okay.
They're complementary. So we did have someone sign in, and they're welcome to speak. And just as a miscellaneous from my standpoint, we started with the Five Gyre Institute that came in, I think, 2 to 3 years ago, talking about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in the ocean. And at that time, we saw that it was the size of Texas, and only a few years later now, it's the size of France. And so everything we talk about in this committee has real-world impact. And I'm going to keep bringing that to everybody's attention that this is getting bigger and it's getting worse. And we're never going to recycle our way out of this because the markets have shifted. China's shut down. We just had a meeting at Solid Waste today about the cost of handling our waste is going up. And we've got to really find solutions because it's impacting not only Cuyahoga County, the whole planet, and everybody's connected. Everybody is consuming fish and eating and drinking out of the same place. It's not something separate. And it's the size of France. And that's only a couple years. And much of that is plastic. So I'm going to keep bringing that to everybody's attention because we're going to hit a critical mass.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
On that point, it's also projected to triple in size in the next 7 years. The amount of plastic in the oceans. So
we will have more plastic in the ocean than fish. And if that's not alarming, I don't know what is. So anyways, we have a speaker.
Yes, Mr. Vitantonio.
Or comment.
Sure. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Appreciate the time. I didn't realize I had to sign in. And again, my apologies to the council. I'm the president of the Cleveland Auto Dealers Association. We have 270 franchised new car dealers in 21 counties, but that includes 77 new car dealers in Cuyahoga County. So we span 21 counties, even though we're called Greater Cleveland. We have every new car dealer, truck, motorcycle dealer in the county. This legislation has just come across my desk. I know you guys have been working on it for some time. And we do have some issues with it in that we're regulated by the AG. The Consumer Sales Practices Act is obviously something we have to comply with no matter what we're doing as far as business in the state of Ohio. And we don't have any issues with complying with that. But I think we believe that adding another agency to this is going to cause some confusion for us. And I know that you guys have referred it to council. We can certainly come back and present to the entire council with our objections and our concerns about the legislation, because at this point, again, we are highly regulated either on the federal level, on the state AG's level. There's Cleveland, AG office here, Consumer Affairs, and this legislation, the way it's written, does change some of the things that we believe the protections of the businesses have under the CSPA. So I think we can get into some more detail, or I can answer any questions. But we, as an organization, would object to having power being shifted to the counties that's already being handled by the AG's office. So,
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that name.
Vittantonio, my last name, Lou Vittantonio.
Yes. Mr. Vittantonio. This is just a time when people come up and you know, have some words to say, but if you would be willing to hang around a little bit, I'd like to talk to you.
Sure.
About your concerns.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and again, I don't know if this is the forum, but again, would like to, you know,
well,
exactly
I understand.
see where we're at, and we'll go from there. Okay? All right. Thank you for the time.
Oh, sure. And what I want to remind the committee of is that the county's legislation that's before us has been passed out of committee, mirrors that of the state, with maybe one nuance that I'm aware of. And the Attorney General's office cannot accommodate all of the enforcement that happens in this county or state. So it's incumbent upon us as a charter government to protect our residents. And my position as chair of the committee is really behind this legislation, because there's no way that the AG can keep up with all the problems that exist. And if a company is in compliance, then they should have nothing to worry about. And regulations to me are safety measures. They're protections. They're consumer protections. So that's, I think it's really important that we listen to this, but also to recognize it's not going to cause a problem, because it's just another arm of enforcement. Thank you.